Radio sHAZZBOT, Issue 02, May 2024.
BETA MAXIMUM OVERDRAFT, Episode 0208.
Errata, humors and innuendos, and letters to the editor.
The opinions expressed in these pages do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the writers and managers of Invisible Ink Publications, and they are intended primarily for satirical purposes only, plus the fact that, like, them, also, anyway, any resemblance to any public or private figure is purely coincidental. Reader discretion is advised.
Oh, I have no intention of being a cynic. You skeptics just all need to stick together, that's all. You're doing that on purpose. Oh, come on now. What possible purpose could I have for doing that? Flan, flan, flan. Marvelous flan. Glorious flan. Wonderful flan.
Other bands that I'd been in had always been like the young ones, but this one was different. This one was more like waiting for Gail Godot.
Okay, so I've been watching this next presidential election like I'm some kind of a deranged sports bookie at the highly JLI tournaments, and I think that all they need to do is flip the ticket to Harris Biden instead. With that done, I think maybe she could easily pull her head around the clubhouse turn by a squeaky 4%, and it might just be the 4% that a Harris Biden ticket would need to win at the presidential elections. Or do the demographics just need a more generic conservative Democrat warhorse who's under 80? To balance the ticket, like Saints forbid, a Joe haunted mansion or a haunted Kristen promo cinema. Gods forbid. Of course, in such a heated political environment as this hot mess turning point, where there are like no windows and no doors, and beware of hitchhiking policymakers, they may try to follow you home. Either of the frontrunners might be committed in any stage of the competition now. I guess if Nikki Haley came clean with a real name, Namareet Nikki Ramaswamy Haley, then no one in her own Rasputin party would be willing to vote for her either. Of course, all of this might have already been taken over by events before post time here at the Haley JLI tournaments.
This is your local department of alcohol, tobacco, and Dungeons and Dragons, Airbnb, inviting you to observe this upcoming election season with caution, but please imbibe responsibly. And do remember, if you see something funny, say something funny.
Just an ordinary smart stand-up smart-aleck. Joseph. No unbreakable standards to speak of whatsoever.
Yo-Yo Dine Wild. It's a late night with Thomas Pynchon. But you know, sometimes folks, I like to put away the big V-star ratings and put the kibosh on all that crying of Lot 49. And I catch a close shave with the bleeding edge off a crusty, backdated, overdue library card application. And I emerge from the gravity's rainbow around the deserted, entropy-encrusted bathtub ring around the collar that protruded from the paranoia of my hysterical realism, and from a nearby Mason and Dixon historical realism parody of a parody. I doff a children's birthday party magician's hat stolen after a quick change curtain call, and like a solo free jazz musician working the forgotten merchandise booth of his own forgotten free one-man concert, with an inherent vice rarely seen except by the slow learner rock critics at a condemned laundromat bowling alley telethon at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. And I catch a Meter Reader's pizzeria delivery truck over to Vineland, Caddy Corner till Against the Day, and Desolation Boulevards. I ride that Disney dystopian suburban sprawl baby driver into a boarded up back alley diaper delivery service. And every neighborhood has to have at least one. And then I find myself shambling up the staircase backwards with a Boccaccio, Dante, Chaucer, Milton, Dan Brown, and Dr. Seuss dog-eared paperbacks in hand that I had earlier cribbed from outside a combination beauty school and reform school bus stop bench. To do the segment I call my Juvenilia's Postmortem Epitaph, and my Homer's Divine Comedy Purgatory Opally Splatter, in what can only be called my epilogue.
Best in show so far as the his dark material goes. But let 'em in Ian discourteous. Let 'em in.
Always mic the room first next time, kids, before you get too wasted to hit on the drunkard stuff. It's like they asked Jimi Hendrix at the job interview, "Are you experienced? And have you ever been experienced?" They laughed at me at the local Laugh Factory at the Comedy Kitchen. They said my ideas were too progressive, and my accent too Floridian.
You don't ride a bicycle to work, do you? That shite will make you paranoid. And I know that squirrels will live out like what? Like 7 1990s Bruce Willis action-adventure comedy thrillers in a single day. And you never know what's just around the corner, do you? Mad respect. But you don't watch the Law in Great Show, do you? Now that shite will really make you paranoid. Did you know that Bruce Willis had like 10 writers on his staff? 10 writers. Right. I'm still on that one. That's that Hollywood money, as Robin Leach used to say.
Stacks.
Hey Volts, my uncle just lived to be 93 years old.
Volts.
Hey Stacks, what did he do to get there? Did he walk 6 miles a day while doing drummer isometrics? Did he train in mixed up martial arts for 10 hours a day? I'm dying to know, Stacks. What did he do to live to be 93 years old? Did he do dynamic tension exercises like that Charles Atlas Shrugged character from the back pages of the old comics book magazines?
Stacks.
No, and no, Volts. He did none of those things. He just mostly kept his mouth closed, kept his nose down, and minded his own farthing business. And he didn't ask a bunch of stupid questions, either. Well, you went to TV school, didn't you? I hear that they aren't even teaching where babies come from at those places anymore.
Aesop's letters to the kids. See, I always knew it was like actor Jim Carrey in that Bruce Almighty, 93, movie, and like in Mel Brooks' Spaceballs, 87, with that May the Schwartz be with you routine. I knew that they would make the best representations of spirituality here on Earth, but by the time they got around to never even making a Spaceballs Part 2, not 15, following the built-in success of the Star Wars Force Awakens franchise, of course that second sequel would have just been Hollywood as usual anyway, where they finish your jokes for you, and everybody gets a piece of the pie for their pie-in-the-sky ideas. Believe me, that instant success stuff only happens in Hollywood movies, kids, really. It just wasn't the original creator's intent. It's said that they always finish your jokes and concepts for you in Hollywood, and that the success stories that you see in Hollywood are only like that in the movies anyway. But I digress, whew. But we have drifted. Where's our beach towel? It's I over there now. Ha ha. I heard one of those televangelist cretins say that on the Idiot Toaster recently.
But seriously, kids, some of those old goth post-punk era singles that were recorded in some of those old echo chamber analog tape hiss studios really still hold up to the marches of time. Believe it or not. I'll take a club dub dance version remix of an old Suxi and the Banshees 45, most likely engineered by the band itself, to a lot of so-called dance music that's on the Will the Strippers dance to it at the strip clubs. Frontline Payola Jerk Shack Club hit parade these days, believe me. If the girls don't dance to it, Atlanta won't put it on the radio anywhere. And I guess that there goes another myth refuted. I mean, what do you want? An old school radio request line in this day and age. But those old goth single and 45s. I mean, even the Misfits original garage recordings. Oh well, you know, this is what it sounds like when God sighs. But I digress.
In a recent poll, 53% of U.S. citizens said that they read only 2 or 3 books last year. And I wonder what 2 or 3 books those might have been. We had to sell the condo timeshare and move back to Schenectady. It's against my religion to look at any more of these Trump flags here in Brooksville. Oh, the theocracy of these people.
Aesop's letters to the kids continued, but this DeForest Ungump character really does represent the riffraff anti-pope to these forsaken people in the Far Side cartoon we called the Party of Linkin Park, the so-called right-wing, the so-called cancelled Christmas party, the so-called evangelical cats on the right-wing Reichstag. They think that maybe they can use just like a Rottweiler. This loony, penniless guy who used to play a millionaire on TV in order to guard their anti-science, off-brand, new Dark Ages agenda. Cerberus the triple-faced dog, guarding the gates of hell, anyone. Hare, the artist formerly known as the Prince of Peace, is right. The new no normal is the no new normal. Unfortunately, it's not woke versus woke. It's sane versus insane in this next silly election. These fake ex-masses are gonna take your beer away, Skeeter. You have a better chance of getting solid advice from anyone else who only played a millionaire for a few seasons on the Idiot Toaster. Jem Backus from Gilligan's Island might have known a lot about a lot of things, but really, Karen and Darren, really.
Keith Richards' songs will sneak up on you, much like Keith Richards will himself.
Full supplies, like Conan O'Brien once said recently, I'd be making the same Consumer Reports, audio comic book radio podcasts if I was recording from an empty swimming pool in Brucksville, and just chatting away while sitting on someone's abandoned patio furniture. And won't you welcome please my next guest, the irate, senile old homeowners sociopath association lady with her cute pit bull from down the street.
Or just ask the merry widower about that one symphony with that one arpeggiated note missing from that one intervallic inversion motif. Now, how can I turn this one into a reality TV game show theme song? Drama is like comedy without the jokes, but also without the laughs. But that's not how airports work, dude.
Some of these age-granny glasses, old school book mobile lady ninja warriors are like Cage Tigress Book Club MTV succubus in their so-called spare time. Take Lauren Breitbart. She capitally earned a GED at age 34, and now she's pretending to be at a high school student council government meeting on the public dollar in the halls of our U.S. Congress. A 34-year-old grandmother with a wayward son as well, who is all in for family values. She is the queen of all my dreams, and recently single too. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Once summoned, she must make an appearance. You know what I'm saying. She's a special needs, special farces, special delivery MILF in real life. But, of course I once felt bad because I had 2 dates, and then I met a man who actually had 2 dates. Just his luck, right? But I so hope that she's Trump's running mate. It's just a basketball team of adorables, isn't it? Lord Breitbart, call me. I might have some exciting investment opportunities for you.
If you love what you do, then you'll never work a day in your life. But if you never work a day in your life, then you'll love what you do anyway, so it's kind of a palindrome. Isn't it, Boar's Head? Even where I'm from, which is just on the other side of that bridge over there. Really, the power of human speech is actually thought of as more of a gift, rather than a curse. But I knew I should have just gone out for candy cigarette vapors and just kept on driving all those years ago. Not going anywhere for a while. Grab a Snickers. This sentiment still echoes in my head sometimes. Just another day in paradox. It is a sentiment that is both real and fake all at the same time. Just like all real, fake, abstract, expressive art. These days we watch movie directors and listen to music careers and have books read out loud to us over the phone. We are living in the future. It's like Iggy Pop once said, "Hey, I'm a modern guy." Of course I've had it in the ear before, but it's very Shakespeare. Dining with your enemies. But do you need freedom fries or hash brownies with that order, misters?
Letters.
Dear jerk officers, real-life America's sweetheart Rachel Maddow has said that Trump wants to put all the undocumented workers in gypsy camps. But I think the riffraff anti-pope has already been way too camp enough as it is already. Are you kidding? The once and future despot has actually come out and publicly babbled that very intent recently, on news cameras and everything. But if you want to actually be a nice guy about it and actually give jobs to these friendly folks, maybe a new manufacturing job state in Colorado, or Wyoming or the Dakotas isn't the worst idea in the world. There's lots of open land in the untamed West, that's how the West was won, etc. But one doesn't have to be so exploitative about it with the right kind of government overseers. I'm just tired of hearing people whine about it on my Sunday morning WrestleMania news programs. Just as 90s independent presidential candidate and real-world millionaire Ross Perot once said that he predicted a giant sucking sound coming from south of the border in a warning against the negative effects of the jobs lost to the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement. Isn't it time to think of immigration to the USA as something more like a jobs program or something? And now back to the modern era version of Miss Karen Valentine. Or is that Penny Valentine? Or is that Kathy Valentine?
Signed, both Adam and Steve. The Garden of the Knowledge of the Difference Between Good and Evil. The Tigris and Euphrates River Basins, USA. P.S.
Maybe, just maybe, a Rachel Maddow Miss Universe swimsuit calendar is on the horizon. Of course it would be an instant sellout, but heck, I'd buy one. I love strong women almost as much as I like an actually strong economy. Teenagers, but maybe I'm just old-fashioned that way. Mauve, did they use 7 actual seals in Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal? Or was it really just the one seal? Hey, is this thing even on?
Letters.
Dear city peoples, people from the city go to the beaches to get a little less excitement, and people from the country go to the state fair to get a little more excitement. But what kind of people go to these retirement centre suburbs to rent an Airbnb house and raise hell and party with their fellow office workers? I'll tell you who. Overage teenagers, that's who. Ask yourself, is this head trip necessary? P.S. The God Particle will have her retributions for what y'all did to my Vidalia's garden, and hopefully she won't leave too much of a mess for the next Bacchanalian party reverends to clean up afterwards. Some Humor magazine staff. I thought that we were still sending out marauders and rapscallions to Mexico for Egyptian spring break anymore these days. And I can't believe what I'm seeing. Do you boys wash windows?
My hands felt just like 2 balloons. There is no pain. You are receding. I'm simply having a wonderful nervous breakdown. Now, how am I ever going to draw all of that, man?
Halloween is like amateur night in my neighborhood, but you never saw Joe DiMaggio. Kids, you never saw the best, that sort of thing. Well, the ex-president could have just Googled Suksisita Falls, Idaho, or Hungary versus Turkey, or the United States itself to find out their locations. But then, he doesn't trust his intel much, does he? Some people have a real genuine appetite for the stand-up comedy, Pedro. But you might catch a lot more dolphins in those tuna nets before you find any keepable cans of tuna. It is said that a cynic is a person who knows the price of everything and yet the value of nothing. Me, I thought that was a stock adjuster. And that an academic might know 1,000 ideas well, but not even a single person all that well. And I thought that was a day trader. But I think that I'd answer to either one if I thought that the money was right. A memory device to remember all of the initials for situation, circumstances, relationship, objective, and obstacle when you are developing a fictional character's personality background. SCROO. Someone should think up a memory device to remember all these words with. All you have to do is remember SCROO. It shouldn't be that hard, Chrissy. Or Scrooged we all shall be. Well, it is easier to accidentally bot dial a pop-up order from a pop-up bot dial magazine on Amazon's Prime than it is to find the link to a humor magazine like this one telling you to be careful not to accidentally bot dial a pop-up order from pop-up bot dial magazine on Amazon's Prime. And you don't even need a certified artistic license from the National Writers Association to do so. But in this whole transactional relationship, Situa McCallet, Mr. 7-Eleven counter clerk, how have I not acted as refreshing and sweet as Guishep, the Italian-American water ice vendor we see every day in the park across the street? Now, what do you mean you're all out of grape Slurpee mix? You see that, truth believers. Sometimes I do write about an actual romance.
And sponsored by Pepsi Frankenstein. When no one else is looking, there's Pepsi Frankenstein.
If a rock band like the Hold Steady makes perfect sense to you, but you couldn't possibly explain them to anyone else, well, it's kind of like they play this Heartland American and Tom Petty and Bob Seger kind of music. But then you know that guy at the back of the room with a plastic beer cup who talks over every song at every party. That's their lead vocalist. And yet you go on trying to explain the band to other people. You might be a rock critic type. Hint, that which cannot be explained to someone who hasn't experienced it, but that which requires no explanation to someone who has experienced it, is typically called a minor miracle, kind of like the Impossible Burger at Burger King. And then if you get the cheese on top of it, it's like the peanut butter and jelly in the same jar phenomenon. Instant Nirvana's gonna get you, for I am the karma comedian. Oh sorry, was that out loud?
Gaze not too deeply into the abyss, young lady, for surely your little brother is watching you, too.
The great Belgian philosopher Jacques Derrida, at a luncheon with Emil Wittgenstein and the much celebrated, and also Belgian, social theorist Bertrand Russell, took a seat facing the door of the Baseball de Gout-themed pizzeria, so that he could watch the door for the sudden entrance of Russian gangsters. Much like famous, not a mobster John Gotti.
Upon being served the house favorite minestrone salad that his pesto pasta that the Ville Mille deal had made him entitled to, the author of several serious and important sociology books and papers arose from his seat and suddenly exclaimed to the startled waiter and to the rest of his Baseball de Gout-themed pizzeria dinner party goers, "Oh, for the love of the fudge munchkins, man, this Smucker's chicken soup is too poultry plucked and hot to be eaten in this world, or even in the next. This soup sucks, yo." To which the then terrified waiter quickly assured the best-selling author of Les Tribisted and Lost Us is Liz Nostra and other Bagnac classics, some of which weren't even Belgian.
Well, Your Majesty, I could have the piano player blow on it a bit, or I could have the chef put more flies in it to cool it down for you, Your Most Significant and Exquisite Highness Almighty. To which the monstrous and barrel-chested Emil Wittgenstein added, "I think this kid is getting really smart with you. Like that's not really difficult or something, Mr. Derrida. Are you getting smart with him, kid? Cause that actually is kind of really difficult."
Little is known of what happened next with Jacques Derrida and his party-goer pals that day at the baseball-themed Pizzeria de Gout and Gala Smart Guy luncheon gathering, except that Derrida quickly produced a bread knife, grabbed the startled waiter from behind, and threatened to stick it where the sun don't shine. Pizza boy, if the social slight was not soon remedied, forthright and with much hastily applied social remedy paste.
The terribly shaken and yet not entirely stirred concierge came to the young underage waiter's rescue and quickly produced the working papers of the restaurant's front door hostess, that unassuming local Faro provincial peasant girl with a good skin, one who Derrida would soon make plans to take with him on a speaking tour of the nearby Dutch, not Belgian, countryside, was quoted at the time as saying, and hey, who really knew from there? Incidentally, for your information, this same unassuming local provincial Faro peasant girl with the good skin would grow up to one day play the role of Malek Blalock on the North America TV quiz show Hip Hop, Truth or Consequences, only a few years after having appeared for 6 seasons on TV's 30 Rocks from the Sun. But Malek Blalock is perhaps best known as having a starring role alongside teen heartthrob Joey Lawrence for 6 seasons on the hit NBC TV series The John Larroquette Show. Need citation.
With the moral of our little parabola parable being stated, of course, as gaze not too deeply into the abyss, young lady, for surely little brother is watching you back as well.
I looked it up, histrionically. Lady Godiva was a real person, but she was just this massive publicity stunt and smear campaign. Just this massive Pabst Blue Ribbon ad campaign. Get it? Cause the horse is just this actual giant goosh in this situation. Well, it worked in rehearsal, and it killed at the retirement center last week. But then the editors are still at the stage where we laugh every time we get Siri to say poop poop. Imagine using all that advanced and complicated digital microcircuitry just to say the words poop poop. Ha 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 ha. We are living in the future. Flash mobs. Can the flying car be far behind in the cosmic scheme of things?
Any famous last words? Nah, it shouldn't be that crowded today. General George Custard. How's our proximity to the battlefields? Joan of Arc. No, they aren't predicting any excessive wind shear issues this afternoon. Captain Ahab.
Did you ever read any Martin Luther, the Christian church apologist and reformer? After he was stricken with syphilis in his old age, it's like this: the Episcopalians did this, and the Rosicrucians did that, and the sociologists were even worse. But hey, you'll be burned out one day too. Maybe Martin Luther did become a little less profitable as a reformer towards the end. But at least the syphilis made him a little more exciting and interesting to read today, as a founding father of the modern church of the post-1960s John Bleach Society. The Christmas cards with guns in them crowds of today, supposedly, and he's still very much being in the red today, too.
Letters.
My dearest Heathcliff.
Stop taking Skeletor PM if you Viagra rage issues continue for more than 4 days. And you can't seem to stop seeing H.P. Lovecraft-type monstrosities sitting on the sofa and discussing the latest cartoon projects they have under development, like it's an episode of a late-night chat show. And somehow you've become the host body for a brand new Shock True Placebo Group's way of seeing alternative reality itself. Act only as directed. And if you act now, you might receive an MTV Viewer's Choice Award. Yours ever truly and deeply, Gertrude.
Editor's reply.
Gertrude. Such a cruel-hearted mistress in distress. Train wreck of a gal. Such a brain of thought train robber never derailed and hijacked an express trestle so completely and thoroughly before. How do I miss thee? Just let me count the stops.
It stays in the script. Or else you can just take my name off of the internet completely too. Bippy.
Like a Dust Bowl cowboy, the golden age of retail sales only lasted about as long as the Us's Wild West era. Just about the same, only different 40 years or so. For some hypothetical perspective, about 10 years ago, my sister's kids saw all the compact discs in my old collection on the shelves in the 4077 swamp, and she asked excitedly, "Are all of these games?" So I guess the vegetables didn't fall far from the trees in those all too familiar mass consumption situations. In my opinion, Microsoft paperless products went ahead and saved the rainforests. True believers, it is no longer necessary to hoard polyurethane. But it's still a million laughs to do so. You don't buy culture anyways. You only need to rent it anymore. Like Robert De Niro's renegade plumber character Buttle in Terry Gilliam's Brazil was recently quoted as saying, "Yep, we'll have it right on there for you in a jiffy, Chief."
I won't negotiate with tourists here in the Florida. Thus, the December holidays are observed as some kind of a subtopical illusion, or as a tourist trap, if at all really. Hey, it's the court jester. You do an impression of the king, don't you? Maybe you could do it for him as well. I'm sure he'd like to see it. But on second thought, maybe you should just learn how to juggle better instead.
Aesop's letters to the kids.
Dear kids.
Remember the good old days of 8 or 10 years ago when all you had to worry about was foreign terrorism and nuclear war, accidentally triggering a robot singularity, or how to put food back on the kitchen table? Would it be the Mad Max 3 ending or the Terminator 6 9000 that would get the last laugh ending? But in this current election cycle, it seems like one's endgame options have broadened and widened, maybe too much considering.
Nowadays, it's which one comes first, the Hunger Squid Games ending or the Hand Grenade Maiden's Tale ending. Sometimes it seems to be the better odds-on favorite to just ignore all this current event stuff and get a good, loyal dog that you can rely on instead. But I digress.
Remember those simpler times of 8 or 10 years ago, when people would just wonder who would just watch the Twilight Saga's last streaming on Netflix instead? Are vampires and werewolves in love? Here's to simpler times. Or do you think I'm on the internet too much?
But back to our current events trivia contest, backwards bicycling spiral. Of course, the Unabomber ran for president of the USA from a federal prison cell. He didn't win or anything, but he did manage to carry his own district. And that's got to stand for something.
What was that? Holy snits. Well, I hate to interrupt a man when he's praying, haha. One of the nuns came up with that one recently. But I guess the hired-ups, the people who make the real decisions in this country, have already decreed it. When the internet draws you in day after day with "so what else" is news articles like "what do so-called evangelicals really think about Donald throw-ups?" and 25 of TV's Archie Bunker's best quotes revealed, number 24 might surprise you. It's only a matter of the times we live in, really. I guess they really are trying to F with you, man. And the writing was on the penal colony prison cell bathroom wall a long time ago. They own you. And not just this once, either.
Keep telling yourself it's only a movie, and just get yourself a good, dependable dog that you can rely on. Or do you think I'm on the internet too much?
Now, what would be the target audience for something like that? The people in the photo cubes at the local Rite Aid, or what?
Letters.
Dear Postbags.
NFL stands for not fully legitimate. right? Or do you think I'm on the internet too much? What do you think? They play different players so much of the time, just so new people will keep their dark, dirty secret little playbooks. I'd blow the whistle on the entire NFL minority banking system right now, if I could. But I think that eventually someone will come forward about the magnets in the gloves in some of those hail taxi end-zone passes that make people like me lose $10. You know, like in one of those NFL player tell-all books that all read like there's part of a real story missing. They just have to come forward with the true facts eventually. Or do you think I'm on the internet too much? Oh, I see. Call a timeout on that one. Oh, my time is now worth half of what your time is worth now. Apparently editors, and you call yourselves editors. Those NFL highlights reels have as much important and historic footage missing out of them as the GFK Zach Gruber tapes do. Really? Do you think you're getting the full story? Or do you think I'm on the internet too much?
P.S. White American football Jehovah says hi, but he can't stay. He has a game.
Dear Spud Boy, Squid Boy, Suede Boy, Stud Boy, or whatever the S your name is supposed to be.
My friends thought I was crazy to give up a $20,000 a year job in the retail counterculture to write weirdo shite on the internet instead. But boy, did I prove them wrong when I lowered their expectations like I did. They're sure not applauding at home now, are they? Meanwhile, on the WKRP Special Victims Unit 25th Anniversary All-Star Guest Star Supporting Players Anniversary Special, I lift weights so I can open up jelly jars like a minor deity. And dude, I am in the pantheon. I am so on that totem pole. Okay, so psychedelic is anything that opens up your mind a bit, and alcoholic is anything that closes up your mind a bit. Now don't take any wooden reefers. All of you serial moms out there.
And yet we must ask the question, is our voters learning? George Bernard W. Bush Jr. I bet you almost miss him now, don't you? Even though he and Richard, Big Daddy, Cheney gang did to Iraq the same thing that the Russians are currently doing to the Ukraine. Dude, you have the wrong country. If we had weapons of mass destruction, don't you think we would have used them by now? Osama bin Laden doesn't live here anymore, dude. You have the wrong country.
And this is the reason we now have a generation of cyber criminals and unscrupulous phone solicitors to just hang up on. And you can't hold an entire country responsible for the actions of 19 bad Apple religious fanatics anyways. Well, maybe you can, but I can't, without there being some kind of intergenerational repercussions. Not to mention that the current US Extreme Court and its current 6-3 smash right majority is the same corrupt court that put W into the presidency by a 5-4 vote in the first place. More proof that one vote can still make a difference, if you do choose to see it that way.
And there's a magnificent view over Baghdad tonight. It's breakfast accomplished, etc., etc. Of course, no one quotes that murderous idiot for quiet reassurance much these days. Well, there's still not much to early 2000s political nostalgia in my neck of the woods anyway. But this one joker would blow up the whole entire world just to prove to it that he doesn't have small hands. And he does have some pretty small hands, come to think of it. Sigh, I guess several of the punk bands were pretty on target back in the early 2000s era, though.
The RSVP and alumni community. Well, I'm not the one to talk to about that, little Jennifer. I'm a Florida high school English teacher, Nest CPA, and can I interest you in an SS Youth Adult novel instead maybe? There's an interesting series of coincidences story involved.
I imagine that some people read detective novels for the same reason that some people do crossword puzzles, so that they can feel smart without affecting the outcome of the universe. Whereas other people can't do anything without feeling like they're affecting the outcome of the universe. And we call these other people young musicians. That's a very keen observation. How very perceptive. That will be $80 an hour, please.
And so what else is news?
I think we've reached the downhill race to the end of director-led, Hollywood-created, theatrical movie releases. There are already horror movies and rom-coms that take place entirely on other people's cell phones, and that are often ad-libbed movies as well. Those forward-looking 1970s Robert Altman Brothers movies be darned, what with the fallout over COVID-19, and with the preemptive Hollywood writers' strike. Should we maybe expect to see new movie forms developing sooner or later? Space opera westerns, and sword and sorcery nature documentaries, and psychology-tinged political action thrillers that will soon be taking place on other people's cell phones and Zoom and Skype calls. Here are a few titles of these movies to get you started. Okay, you go first.
And so what else is news?
Protecting the US Constitution without ever having read it before is kind of like collecting comic books in the speculation market without ever having taken them out of the bags. Cute, but not essential. Although there is a growing digital market for that sort of thing nowadays. Like the 2006 the iPhones and the MySpace stuff never even happened.
Dude, I'm not sure pretend is the word I would use. If you're in ratings, you're no longer looking for love. Now you're just looking for likes.
Well, this inter-office memo that I intercepted is more dreamlike and surreal. But like most useful abstract art, it does help you to dream. If you did not already exist, someone else would have to dream you into existence. Problem solved. Right. Thanks, Marky. I will see you at the couple's psychedelic office weekend retweet.
Letters.
Dear fellow local Canary Bird Cage Liner contributors,
It's like on Pete and Pete on the After School Mixolydian channel. I think the neat guy should have been the photographer, and the messy guy should have been the sports writer. I mean, it's the one thing to get wrong, right? And then maybe Murray the cop should have been the editor, the great peacemaker. You guys have got to get along. It sets a bad example if you don't. Might have made for some good sample dialogue. But then, I was always just that good at playing with action figures and toy rocket ships and giving them sample dialogue to say when I was a kid. And I didn't ever want to give it up. Kids who play with action figures should be in the Olympics. Like maybe in a league of their own.
yours only, Worm Food Party Remix. The Southwest Central, the Florid, does.
Editor's reply.
Dear Worm Food Party Remix,
It was nice when Timmy first joined the dark side of the Force. He was nicer to his sisters. He did the dishes without having to be asked. And out in the backyard, he even taught the neighbor's cat how to levitate. But the more he got into it, the more he started to, well, change.
Talk to the patient. Don't talk to the condition. But it keeps texting me back.
Letters.
Dear Nerd Astronauts,
Girls farting at the fitness center. The locals call it the spandex flutter. You ladies know what I'm talking about. Sincerely, Tyler Tomlinson, the tailor who's dating Colin Kaepernick instead. Am I right, peoples?
P.S. Smart Alex, fear academics. There's a reason our show is called The Bachelor for 39-year-old males. You get that one, right? Fellow dudes.
P.S. Since when did all the SNL musical guests turn into a grey promo Super Bowl halftime show? I mean, there's a time and a place. You know, P.S. Wait, shouldn't I have some kind of side hustle singing career? Like Debbie Boone or something? You midwives know what I'm talking about.
Editor's reply.
I read somewhere recently that bicycling will make you impotent and paranoid. So I'm thinking of giving it up. What bicycling? Nope. Reading. Joke courtesy of Hee-Haw. All rights reserved.
and I'm all in for Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, of course. I think the ICBMs will bring all sorts of new jobs to the community.
If you've made it to the end of this cartoon radio show, then you deserve to give yourself a huge round of applause. And maybe some cookies and beer to be keeping up with the jokesters next door. Now go watch some cognitive psychology, true crime files, cooking programs, or someone else's family-based EV reality game show host bloopers reel, or imagine, or another. You've earned it. True believers, thanks for your ears. And remember, feedback is always welcome.
Meanwhile, 2 million people are frantically searching for running water in the Gaza Strip. Peace out.
Copyrights 2024.
No CGI was harmed in the making of this comedy radio podcast episode.